My amplified unit, salute Mya Lesnar, the daughter of the beast, Brock Lesnar, doing some big things and about to do even bigger things this Friday. So the discussion now has to at least begin. If Mya Lesnar makes the jump, makes the move to WWE, is there a single female on the main roster for World Wrestling Entertainment? Is there a woman on that roster that can actually hang with Mya Lesnar realistically? We'll talk about it in this upload. Speaking of the females in WWE, one talent who's been with that company for over 16 years could actually be on her way out by the end of next month. We'll talk about who that is. We're also going to talk about a former talent for WWE that has been teasing, wanting to come back for a long time now. There's just one little problem, just a little problem. Kind of big, actually. The dude of 3 H's, I don't think wants him back. We'll talk about it, and what makes it even more complicated is the dude's significant other is about to win a briefcase at Money in the Bank. So that kind of muddies the waters even more. We'll talk about who that is and if you guys would even want to see him back in WWE. We're also going to talk the Raw rating because we're told with stiff competition, the NHL Game 7, there's going to be new champions crowned. It is a Game 7, so there's no way Monday Night Raw can gain viewership, right? That's what we're told because we have all these excuses. Not so fast. WWE did not lose viewers. They actually gained viewers up against Game 7. We're going to talk about it. And if we're going to talk ratings, we have to talk AEW Collision. Because when you look at Dynamite's number and you look at Collision, pretty soon we might have to ask the question, what is the true flagship show of AEW? We'll talk about what we're talking about in this upload, man, because the numbers are telling a very telling story. We're also going to talk Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Big news for VKM. Okay, maybe not big, but funny news with VKM. It popped BC anyway. We're also going to talk a little bit of an update on Jim Ross. Unfortunate. But if we know anything about Jim Ross, is the dude just doesn't quit, and he's going to keep on fighting, keep on rocking, and we're all going to be in his corner supporting him. So we'll talk that as well. Let's get right into it. And before we do anything, smash those ups if you don't mind. It helps the algorithm, but it also lets BC know that you are fully amplified. So go ahead, smash those ups. I appreciate that. Before we get started on any of these stories, on behalf of the entire Amplified unit, want to send all the love, support, and strength over to the Anoa'i family, recently losing Sika Anoa'i. Of course, the father of Joe Anoa'i, Roman Reigns, but a bona fide Hall of Famer in his own right. I believe he was part of the class of 2007 as the Wild Samoans. And he had 3 different stints in World Wrestling Federation, 1980, then I believe roughly 1983 to 85, and then a third stint roughly 86 to 88. Generally speaking, anyway. So many years combined with World Wrestling Federation / WWE. And again, I believe it was 2007 was his class for the Hall of Fame. But obviously his legacy continued beyond any conceivable thought process, right, with Roman Reigns. I mean, nobody could have imagined that Roman, when they debuted as The Shield, even though Vince McMahon, WWE, really wanted to put the rocket on Roman, I don't know if anybody truly could have thought this would have been the end result. But it's pretty damn cool. What a story, and he got to see his son Roman Reigns get to that level, get on top of that pedestal and pretty much stay on it. So pretty cool, man. The life and legacy of Sika Anoa'i. So obviously that is going to be a huge talking point going forward, as it should be. And so anyway, we just want to wish the best to the fam, all the strength, the support, the love from the entire wrestling community, but especially the Amplified unit. Also, it wouldn't feel right if we didn't send some love and some strength and support over to Pat McAfee and his family as well, just recently losing his father-in-law. So That's the reason he actually missed Monday Night Raw. That's as last minute as imaginable. And they were in Indianapolis. I mean, it's a stone's throw away from where he was doing the Pat McAfee show. It was supposed to be a big night for Pat on Raw. The Wyatt 6 angle we were hearing now was supposed to involve Pat McAfee a lot more. So a lot of things had to get switched up. And he found out about that right as that show was coming to a close and he was about to head over to the arena. So lots of love, support, strength over to Pat McAfee and his family as well. And if we're spreading out that love and support and strength, we got to also send it over to Jim Ross. Unfortunately, Jim Ross had to go back to the ER a couple of times now in the past several weeks. Difficulty breathing and just off. So he had to be readmitted to the ER. He believes it was going to be an overnight stay, and that's the last we heard at this juncture. So we will keep updates on any word on Jim Ross as well, but keep him in your thoughts as well. Jim Ross having a bit of a rough time, man. So Jim Ross, if we've learned anything about this dude, he is a fighter. He does not quit. He will keep on rocking. You might see this dude pop up on AEW television Wednesday, Saturday. Take himself out of the ER. We wish Jim Ross all the best as well. All right, let's lighten the mood a little bit. Let's go over to VKM. Big news on Vincent Kennedy McMahon. All right, not quite. In fact, I don't know how this is news at all, but for some reason, a lot of people are interested in it. It gained a lot of traction, and the report is Vincent Kennedy McMahon's office in the new headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. Vince's office remains untouched. That's it. That's the report. People were genuinely interested in it. It gained a lot of traction, asking questions like, is the dinosaur still on the wall? What is it, like a T-Rex? The bones, the fossils of like a T-Rex. And it was in the report. Yes, the dinosaur is still on the wall. Not a pencil has been removed from Vince's desk. And I'm like, of course it wouldn't be touched. They just went to the new headquarters. The legalities are still ongoing. Nobody's just going in there and starting to chuck Vince's computer and notebooks and the dinosaur out the window, right? They're not in the hallway burning all of his memorabilia, right? Baseballs that are signed from the Yankees or who. They're not just burning Vince's stuff and throwing it out the window, right? They're going to let the legalities follow through, and then they'll have him come in, collect his belongings, and then give him Das Boot. But to think that his office would just be absolutely just demolished instantly, or, you know, you're walking through the hallways and where Vince's office used to be is just the black abyss, right? It's now like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. No, what the? Of course it remains untouched. I don't know. That was a story that kind of took on its own life form. But yes, Vince McMahon's office remains untouched. That does not mean, this led a lot of people to jump to conclusions. He's coming back. There's no way. He's not even going to have any stake in the game, guys. When this is all said and done, his last remaining shares are up for sale. They have just not been sold yet that we know of. We do expect them to be sold by SummerSlam. So what's he coming back to? He would have no skin in the game, no stake into this company. I mean, Vince would come back just like a random employee, if anything. Could you imagine Vince McMahon having to, do whatever Endeavor says? Maybe he would still have control over Levesque McMahon because he's just head of creative. Maybe Vince would have a bigger role than that. But there's no way. It's not even conceivable that he would just come back as an employee. Vince will be back in the entertainment industry one way or another. He's going to make sure of that. And he could come back and form his own new wrestling company. That's possible. But his days with WWE, I don't see how that could even manifest to anything. He has no more control on it. So his office being untouched, that's just because there's something legally ongoing, and that's his office. So, you can't have the dude come back to collect his belongings and they're no longer there. we had to move, you know what I mean? But maybe by then, freaking Tozawa is a new creative writer. they put Tozawa on the creative team. He took over Vince's office. So who knows? But that's a nice little lighthearted story to out of some of the heavier stuff that we had to start with. Vince McMahon's office remains untouched. Now that you have all the news you need, you can go about your day. On to some more serious stories, though, man. A 16-year veteran for WWE, a female superstar on the roster, could actually be leaving the company. This could just be to play into the storyline. Several superstars who have had their contracts expiring, they've kind of played it up on social and whatnot. So this could be the case. Or she could just want a new direction and the company might want to move on. But Natalya, after 16 years plus, 2008 was her debut. It's hard to even fathom that, right? That 2008 was that long ago. But 2008, and you have to count the year of 2008, so that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So she's on her 17th year. 17th year in the company. But she has recently removed all references to being associated with WWE. So her removing, or at least most of her connection with WWE, she's removed all of that. And we know that her contract is either already expired or expiring within the first, what was the last report we got? Like the first week of July? Something like that. Now, this is where everybody's going to start jumping to Natty to AEW. First of all, AEW has enough wrestlers, man. Just adding more people onto the ship is only going to sink the ship faster. Stop, relax. I'm not saying Natty doesn't add value, but AEW doesn't have a talent problem. They have so many great talents, but what they have is a quantity problem. They have too many people on the roster. It's not the skilled talent, it's the quantity of the talent, right? It's too many. I mean, they got people like Mercedes Moné there. They got Okada, they got Will Ospreay. They got people when he comes back like Kenny Omega. There's no way. Bryan Danielson, if he doesn't have his 86th concussion, he's always injured. There's going to come a time where Bryan Danielson has to just sit down, right? Brie Bella, like one of those little interventions and be like, dude, how much more can you really sustain? But the point is, you can go down the roster. I mean, there's so much talent. But AEW just cannot keep gathering all of WWE's castaways or people that were not re-signed. That's not the answer anymore. It used to be. Back in WCW versus WWE, the Nitro versus Raw, that was the game, right? When a different wrestler left a company and showed up to the other company, that was major, right? Even a mid-carder back in the day would be a needle mover if they jumped ship from WWE to WCW or vice versa. But they would bump the ratings. That's how much people cared. It was a big story. A lot of talk on it. Nowadays, people have become numb to those jumping ship, right? It's almost irrelevant because we see it all the time. So you get somebody like Mercedes Moné showing up to AEW within 24 hours, a lot of the community's just brushing it aside. So Natalya going to AEW, I don't know if that's answering any questions that need to be attended to, right? Like, what are the real things that is kind of preventing AEW from breaking out like they should have been by now? And is AEW the place where Natty is going to really propel to the heights that WWE did not allow her to? I can't say that's the case. I can't tell you that if Natty goes to AEW, she's going to be on TV every single week, because that's just not how Tony Khan books his females. And I can't tell you that AEW is going to bump from a 500,000 viewership on Wednesday Dynamite to 1 million viewers because of Natty Neidhart. So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong, but before everybody just goes, this is great news, she belongs in AEW, I don't know how another addition to a roster that is so overpacked, it's actually starting to hinder, starting to be a detriment to AEW. I don't know how adding more people is the answer. And unfortunately for Natty and WWE, they just kind of look at her as somebody that's going to teach the young ladies coming in. They don't really have a trajectory for Natty. She's always like the teacher, and every now and again they place her in like something of significance, but because it's so out of nowhere, the crowd can't really back it, right? Because it's just like, oh, that's just Natty. And that's sad to say, but that's how a lot of the fans look at it. Oh, it's Natty going for another title. We know it's not because she lacks any skill. We know she's good at what she does. We all, most of us anyway, like Natty. But to care about what, like if Natty's going for a championship next week, for instance, or at Money in the Bank or at SummerSlam, who's really caring about it, right? Natty, again, 17 years later. Moving on, and while one superstar, Natalya, looks to be leaving the company possibly, one former superstar is desperately trying to come back. Several teases, many teases over the last several months especially. Matt Cardona. Woo, woo, woo. You had to have known who we were talking about. You know it. Matt Cardona dropping another tease recently. Indy. Royal Rumble in Indy 2025. Indy in capital letters because he calls himself the Indie God, right? That's his new moniker. He's one of these wrestlers that has tried to make a name for himself outside of WWE so that WWE can appreciate him more, right? And go like, damn, this dude's doing it without our machine backing him. Right? Like the Cody Rhodes, right? He went off, did what he did in Japan, started a whole company, AEW, and they're like, all right, we got to get this guy back. Cardona has done that. He's done pretty damn well on the indies, has a damn good fan base. Indie God is the moniker he has bestowed upon himself. But the one issue is the dude of 3 H's, it doesn't seem like he wants him back. I think a lot of us like Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona. A lot of us appreciate the dude and still think there's value in him. Obviously, outside the ring, such a good dude. But I don't think Paul Levesque McMahon cares too much for him. And so all of these teases, they're not leading to anything. It's like Levesque McMahon is not even close to picking up the phone. So recently, Cardona, because Royal Rumble is going to Indianapolis, and he just, he put out on the social doohickey, Royal Rumble in Indy. Indy in capital letters. And then like afterwards, there was a follow-up post. And he was just like, attention to all indie promoters. I am booked completely for February 1st, 2025, which is, of course, is the date of the Rumble. So this guy, he's in business for himself. He's absolutely, he's promoting himself for the Rumble beautifully. Again, the problem is, I just don't know if the dude of 3 H's, Paul Levesque McMahon, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, I don't know if he cares to bring back Matt Cardona. And what's absolutely wild about all this is it his wife or fiance or girlfriend? I don't know if they're actually married or not, but his significant other, Chelsea Green, could possibly win Money in the Bank, hold a briefcase, and cash in and perhaps be champion sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, her dude is trying to get back into the company. Paul Levesque McMahon is like, huh? What? What's going on? I gotta go to a meeting. Zach who? Cardone who? Cartuna? Levesque McMahon doesn't look like he is too interested in bringing back Matt Cardona. Don't know how you guys feel about it. I mean, Zack Ryder was a dude that was gaining momentum at one point in WWE, and it looked like Vince was going to give him at least some of that rocket, and he just like totally just reeled it back, stomped it out, and Zack Ryder was never what he could have been in WWE. And we all remember, too, that WrestleMania moment, one of his last big moments in WWE, unfortunately. It's like a ladder match for the IC title, and didn't he win it? It was at WrestleMania, I believe, and he was at top of the ladder. He had the IC title. The fans were going nuts. So, we have fun with Matt Cardona because of how many times he's teased coming back to WWE, and it just doesn't look like Levesque McMahon cares. So we have a little bit of fun with it, but we also can't cast away the fact that he could have actually been something really big. It was WWE that decided to pull the plug on it. So as much as we have fun with Matt Cardona, we can't act like he didn't bring value or couldn't have brought a lot of value. I guess what I'm saying is, if he does ever come back, I wouldn't be shocked if he gains one last run of true success. The same success he could have had the first time around. But for now, it looks like Paul Levesque McMahon is fine with just putting him on the indies and keeping him there and seeing him once in a while when Chelsea brings him as a +1 to like Hall of Fames. This is a good time to talk this week's Raw rating from this past Monday night's show. This show going up against the NHL Finals, Game 7. So we know there's going to be champions crowned. It is a Game 7. Hockey might not be as big as other sports here in the States, but this Game 7 still garnered millions of viewers, just like Game 6 and those that preceded it. So this is where a lot of fans just passed off this week's show. Don't worry about the numbers, everybody. WWE can't compete with the Game 7 of any playoff, so don't worry about the ratings. WWE has an excuse, right? This is where we're all supposed to say that. Absolutely not. Put your best foot forward. Produce your best show. Nobody's asking you to go ahead and beat a Game 7 of any sport. We're asking you just to care. Still put out your best show so that the people that don't care about Game 7, or maybe it's a boring game, or maybe they just don't like it, they want to tune into something else, give them that reason. When you do that, you'll at least better yourself. And that's what WWE did. They didn't phone it in. I'm not saying this was a great Monday Night Raw, but at least they didn't phone it in. They went from last week a 1.7 some odd. This week, up against Game 7, a 1.84. They didn't stay stagnant. They didn't go backwards because of a Game 7. They didn't use an excuse. They went up in the ratings to a 1.84. And why? Because they produced some segments last week, some storylines, that made people at least go, I actually don't mind seeing where this leads to. I kind of want to see what happens next when you debut the Wyatt 5/6 like they did last week. People are interested to see how they continue that. Or coming off a Friday Night SmackDown, what happened with Drew and Punk, and knowing that Drew is on Raw, he could show up and say something about the Punk incident. You've got a few things that made people go, all right, I kind of want to see what happens. I kind of want to see what happens on Raw. That's what happens, man, when you actually care or start caring. Now comes the whole situation of consistency, right? Now you have to have consistency and not just have a good week of television or a good couple weeks and then just go right back to redundancy and normalcy, business as usual. But for these past couple of shows, you saw SmackDown up against Game 6 of the playoffs. And SmackDown went from a 1.9 previous to a 2.3 plus, nearly 2.4, I believe, correct? They got over 425,000 viewers back in 1 week, and that was up against Game 6. So I want to stick with the ratings, but jump over to AEW if you don't mind. Of course, it was 1 week ago that Dynamite pulled in just 500,000 viewers, 502,000 viewers. Still to this day, we're here a week later now. And those insiders in the industry still don't know what happened. It was a collapse that stunned insiders in this industry to the point where they put a bunch of excuses together into one big excuse ball, and that's what they rolled at everybody because they don't know. But none of those excuses can truly, even all those excuses together, they could not tell the tale of a show crashing 180,000 down to 500,000. Still, a week later, and BC is absolutely stunned that Dynamite pulled in 500,000 viewers. So then you look at Dynamite. It tells a story in and of itself. Dynamite is not only holding steady, but there's many weeks where Dynamite will pull in a number that surpassed what those originally thought inside the company it was going to pull. Like this week, 429,000 viewers. Guys, you take the 502,000 that Dynamite got, you look at Collision's Saturday Night B show, that got 429. Collision has just pulled up to Dynamite. They're 73,000 viewers away from Dynamite. So what makes people think that, or not look at soon anyway, Collision as the A show? So the question is AEW going to have a little bit of a problem here? And I guess it's not the worst thing in the world, right? At least it's your show that is surpassing your A shows. But is Collision soon going to do that? I mean, if I expect Dynamite to bounce back from 500,000. I absolutely do. All those excuses may have dinged them up a bit, no question. But it was also a much bigger thing that happened last Wednesday. People just didn't care about the show. I don't know if that's going to continue this week. You got to believe at bare minimum, they're going to be back over 6, maybe even over 650 this week. Bare minimum. Which is still very low, right? It's absolutely, it's just bad. 650. You just got to hope that they, at this point, can even clinch 700. But the point is, 500,000 viewers is where they're at. A week before, they were only at 680. So the trajectory is that they are going backwards on Wednesday night. But Collision is holding steady, and in some cases going closer to 500,000. At some point, could Collision actually pass Dynamite? And if that's the case, and that happens consistently, even 2 to 3 weeks, bare minimum, does Tony Khan have to look at the business model and change it up? Maybe Collision is the A show. Maybe Saturday night, for some reason, is trumping our Wednesday night show. It's a question. But it actually has substance because Collision is holding steady between that 4 and 5, as Dynamite is going backwards toward 5. And if they start dipping below 500,000, who's to say Collision's not the A show and maybe you got to change your business model? It's a question that right now you may say, oh, BC, we don't have to worry about that right now. It's not there yet. It kind of is. They pulled within 73,000 viewers, guys. In a month or two, who's to say Collision's not pulling a higher rating? Well, because Dynamite's is that low. Collision, man, when they debuted, and then there's the horrible numbers for a debut anyway, and then it just sank like immediately a week later. We thought this thing could be off the air within 6 months. But it has pulled in a pretty steady, consistent viewership for a Saturday night show that not a lot of people are giving love to. So I got to give some props over. Whatever they're doing on Collision, man, it's keeping people there. Man, I wouldn't be shocked if it overrides Dynamite in the near future. And I want to end off with Mya Lesnar. Mya Lesnar tearing it up right now and about to, or at least going to attempt to get on the Paris Olympic team for track and field. Mya Lesnar, for those that don't know, is the daughter of Brock Lesnar, as if you couldn't tell. If you've ever seen a photo of them, like a side-by-side, splitting image doesn't do it justice, right? That's an understatement. But Mya Lesnar, NCAA championships, all that aside, this Friday in Oregon, she's going to the Olympic trials and she's going to try to make the Paris team for track and field. And there's a good chance that she will end up making that. It's like taking Brock Lesnar's talents and strength and beast status, and Mya Lesnar, at least female-wise, is just like trumping that in many ways. In fact, Mya was recently interviewed and she talked about her dad, Brock Lesnar. And she said, I don't see superstar like everybody else. To me, he's just dad. And I feel like I've been in the shadow of him for so long that it's pretty cool because now I feel he's in the shadow of me and watching me conquer and dominate. Paraphrase, but that's basically exactly what she said. It felt like for so long I was in his shadow. Oh, you're the daughter of Brock. But now she feels like he's getting in her shadow because she is absolutely dominating everything that's put in front of her. So I just thought that was such a telling statement. But we wish her all the best this Friday in Oregon. She could make the team, man. And you could have Brock Lesnar's daughter, Mya Lesnar, in the Olympics this year. How badass. And she's just, the closest comparison I can think of, right? Even one of my favorites in the industry right now, Jordynne Grace, it even trumps like just that. I think the closest comparison, if you put them in the ring, you could just sit back and go, I don't even know who wins this, would be Chyna. Chyna, if you guys remember Chyna, and Mya Lesnar. If you built that up correctly, whoa, you just take out your wallet. You got to hand WWE Endeavor several of your credit cards because you got to see that. And it brings up a very interesting discussion because you got to believe at some point she's WWE bound. You have to believe that. All of this, and when that side of it is said and done, there is a place for her in pro wrestling. That's obvious. There's a ton of money to be made. Brock has already shown her probably all the ropes, even if she didn't want to know the ropes. There's a ton of money to be made, and she's just too. Everything about her just screams WWE roster spot. But if that ever becomes the case, could be sooner than later, by the way, who can hang with her on this roster? Like legit, I guess if Jordynne Grace, if the portal is totally blown wide open and Jordynne Grace would be one of the closest options, maybe Rhea Ripley? That's a maybe, right? Rhea Ripley's a badass girl, got the muscles popping out, but Mya Lesnar is just a different type of beast. I don't even know how long Rhea could hang. But I mean, some of my favorites, little Zelina, little Liv Morgan, who I just put on the Raw review. Morgan is money. Morgan is doing such good work. I'm glad that Paul Levesque McMahon has given her that opportunity like Vincent Kennedy once did. But, I mean, they can't hang with Mya Lesnar, right? Even if you make it a 2-on-1, Zelina and Morgan. But what is Chance going to do against Mya Lesnar? Katana Chance. Or Kaden Carter. Some of my favorite female tag team by far. But even if you want to go another, how about Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, Jade Cargill? That would be fun. But she's just still so green. You really have to work with Jade Cargill. And who knows how green Mya Lesnar will be, right? Or is she just going to be one of those freak athletes that just gets it instantly? Like a Brock, like a Kurt Angle. She just seems like one of those athletes that just gets it and dominates whatever's in front of her. But I don't know. I mean, there's not like a Becky Lynch, a Charlie Flair. I don't see it. Bianca Belair would be fun. Mya Lesnar, you just run down that roster and you just think, like, who can possibly hang with Brock's daughter? If you've seen photos of this gal, she is a beast already. And she's basically still a kid, you know, young adult. But, I mean, there's still so much growth. How much more of a beast can she become? And if she becomes even more of a beast, then you got to believe you can only put her in handicap matches. 6, 7, 8, 9 on 1. Anyway, guys, it's a good discussion. We wish her the best. She could be making the Olympic team. We'll find out this Friday. But Mya Lesnar, one day soon, I don't see how this won't happen. She's most likely going to be WWE bound. I'm not saying that's exactly what her goals were as a kid, but it seems like the natural fit. Ton of money to be made, and she is an absolute freak of nature beast. Just like Pops. Wild, man. This gal is already tearing it up. Imagine her in WWE or in pro wrestling. Imagine if Tony Khan scooped her. Could you imagine? Right before Paul Levesque McMahon's trying to get her, and all of a sudden Tony Khan's like, by the way, Mya Lesnar's debuting next Wednesday night. Be wild. Anyway, guys, this has been a little bit longer of an upload than I originally had planned, but a lot of good discussion. Had a lot to talk about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys were entertained by it. And until next time, and there will be that next time, top guys, my amplified unit BC, we are out. Check you. Peace.